Hey there, welcome to Season 2 of Unsafe Spaces USA. I'm Randy Cross, and we'll take you through just sort of to our way of thinking, some of the top news stories and information out there. We'll also have a conversation with Mike Lozano, who's with the Atlanta Fire, a Pee-wee hockey team here in the Alpharetta area at the Cooler, and they'll be competing in a tournament up in Quebec, a Pee-wee tournament that's basically the Little League World Series of youth hockey. So you got that to look forward to. First, we're going to talk a little bit about football. And we will start with college football. And greetings from Loserville, or also known as the almost champion city, Atlanta. Yeah, it happened again. People bought in. This was going to be the year. Do you remember 28-3 in the Super Bowl? How'd that end up? How about 20-7 in the national championship game? How'd that end up? Wow. What an amazing game. But let's take a look first at the college football playoff championship game last night down at the Mercedes-Benz Dome. Atlanta's got an unbelievable setup as a venue. They should have more championship everythings here, especially in that building. This was a classic overtime victory for Nick Saban, his 6th national championship, tying him with the Bear, the one and only Bear Bryant, former Alabama Crimson Tide head coach. It's Nick Saban's 5th at Alabama, but he also won another one at LSU. Now, last night started off for a game that ended up 26-23. It looked eerily like we were going to have another one of those LSU-Alabama 10-9 games on our hands. Because as this thing started out, and we run this video of the highlights, a lot of offense from Alabama. Georgia came out throwing the ball. Alabama came out running the ball. They came out running the ball a lot with Jalen Hurts. And that was an early indication that this was not your normal kind of championship game. It was going to go back and forth the entire time. Roll the tape. You know, the Bulldogs, they get on the scoreboard early, but there's a turnover in here. You know, that was just clean taken away. That became a meme later of Alabama stealing the national championship trophy. Here's Jalen Hurts running early. And early on, he was the best player for Alabama. Now, this poor kid, you know, he's going to be, he will probably be the guy that will not be named. I don't want to embarrass him. So he's not probably going to be. He's going to be. For Alabama, again, Hurts, watch this. When you see the next time this is run, watch the back of his head and the way that he is slammed into the ground. Bang, right there. Hurts was not the same after that play. I may be making a mountain out of a molehill, but he ended the half 3 for 8. The MVP maybe for Georgia, the guy that did an amazing job kicking, Rodrigo Blankenship. He's a young man. He's going to be around for a little while longer for the Dogs. What a great weapon. Jake Fromm did a lot of passing, threw some really nice passes in some big spots. They did a nice job, Georgia did, of staying faithful to the run and then play actioning and getting themselves points. And when they got in position to get field goals, Blankenship nailed them. And this game now at 6-0, you kind of kept expecting, when's the next shoe going to drop? Well, here was the next shoe, and it wasn't an Alabama shoe. It was a Georgia shoe. So they start out in this formation. Fromm runs out. They expect Michelle to be in the Wild Dog. No Michelle. And it's a touchdown. How about Harmon? That was a great play by Harmon. He made a lot of really big plays. But now, the trending topic, hashtag Tua, the quarterback. He answers. You're 13-7. Georgia comes right back. I mean, right back. And Jake Fromm answers and throws that dime down the sideline. But the other freshman, Tua to the right. Now Tua to the left. And you're tied at 20. It would go to overtime because Alabama misses a field goal. He that shall not be named had his chance. And then right here, this could have lost the game for Alabama. You never take that kind of a sack. You throw the ball away. What happens the next play? Watch the top of the screen. This is 4 verts. 3 guys on the bottom of the screen going deep, 1 guy on the top of the screen going deep. And Tua throws that ball in there perfectly, and that's the ball game. So again, hey, stuff happens, huh? Well, not really. The best team wins. Alabama was the best team. But in this market that's just had a bad Super Bowl loss, that had a decade, all except for 95, and World Series and playoff losses in baseball, they've never gotten over the hump in the NBA. Hockey couldn't survive here. Ooh. It's another bad day after the game. The only difference between this one and most of the other ones, today's a Tuesday, not a Monday. But again, still Loserville. Oof. It hurts. But you know what? It's a great thing about sports. There's always another one coming up. And there was something that happened this last weekend, Saturday and Sunday, that was fantastic. That was the NFL playoffs. Now, double digits down in TV ratings, but for whatever reason, you read and interpret into that whatever you want. But the NFL games, there were a couple of really good games. First game of the week was a very boring defensive football game, which between Jacksonville and Buffalo going in, you kind of knew it was going to be a very boring defensive football game because both these quarterbacks, Bortles and Taylor, had periods during the season where they played okay and also periods during the season where they played terrible. That's exactly what they did in this game. Bortles just at the end decided to run around a little bit more, had more success, and Jacksonville comes out, definitely the best defensive team in the league, with a 10-3 win. Very impressive for Jacksonville. They'll have their work cut out for them going forward because they're going to be in Pittsburgh for the next round. In the next game we witnessed over the weekend, it was the Los Angeles Rams, the number 1 seed in the NFC, or number 3 seed in the NFC, going against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons showed up. That defense showed up. And when they needed them, that offense showed up. Really impressive win. And I grew up in L.A. I grew up in L.A. as a Ram fan. Trust me, there's a lot of people my age that are watching new NFL teams in L.A. that have seen this story before. Only it was against usually the Cleveland Browns or the Green Bay Packers, the Chicago Bears, or the New York. Somebody was beating the Rams in the playoffs. They lose in the playoffs again. Next up, but congratulations to Atlanta. Next up in the score machine here, how about, did you see the Saints and the Panthers? This was a very well-played football game. Not too many mistakes. It featured probably one of the more egregious concussion protocol violations. Cam Newton at the end of the game got absolutely boloed. Couldn't make it off the field. Had to kneel down initially, tried to walk off, had to kneel down again, and they played it off as that he'd gotten poked in the eye. I've been poked in the eye a lot. I'm not sure if that makes you kneel down a couple times. You can get to the sideline for a poke in the eye. But he got just crushed on that hit. But they got the ball back. He was back in the game. Well done, NFL. Another great concussion protocol on you. But New Orleans Saints, they've got an offense, Drew Brees. They kind of look like a Super Bowl-bound team. Just my first impression, because they actually play a little bit of defense. And that's a little bit of defense when you got that much offense. That's all you need. Next up on the game parade was the Kansas City Tennessee game. Now, this is another game that was about as bipolar as you could ask for. Kansas City early on were just strumming that butt of the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans couldn't do nothing right. Alex Smith and Kansas City couldn't do anything wrong. Second half, different teams show up. Again, highly rated Kansas City team plays in the playoffs and take a gigantic dump in their hat. Give credit to Tennessee. Marcus Mariota did a nice job. But their defense did a nice job in that second half. Henry did a nice job running the ball. But if you're a Kansas City Chief fan, you've got to be more than just a little bit disappointed. So where are we going into the playoffs for this weekend? Let's take a look at the bracket. Okay, we're starting to come in. The whole idea is you want your name on the board as you start moving towards the middle. The Falcons are going to be playing the Philadelphia Eagles. The Saints are at the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are the number 2 seed. Jacksonville is going to be going to Pittsburgh. And Tennessee's prize for beating Kansas City, they get to go to the New England Patriots, the number 1 seed. And Tennessee's only chance of winning against New England, and I mean the only chance of winning, is that if they can reproduce from the Baltimore Ravens playbook when you go to New England. You physically hand New England their butts. You beat them up. You run the ball. You stuff the run. You go after and you hit Brady repeatedly. And you control the clock. If they can do that, they can win. Most teams don't have the onions to do that for an entire football game. Hey, I wanted to bring up a great highlight. And this is not football. This is not going to be hockey, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. This is golf. But the kind of golf that we can all just dream that someday we can play. And if you play on the weekends or you play occasionally or you watch golf, you got to know about Dustin Johnson. And he can hit the ball a mile. He's the number 1 player in the world. But check this out. That is not a typo. Watch this video. This is at Kapalua at the tournament this last weekend that ended yesterday. And this is Dustin Johnson ripping the ball 433 yards, par 4. Now, he hits the ball about as hard as anybody has ever hit it. Regularly hits it in the high 300s. And yeah, this is downhill.
Here we go.
Oh, man.
400, 410, 420,
Just go in.
430, 2.5. Are you too good for your home? You tell them about it. That was fantastic. Hats off. Dustin Johnson won that tournament, by the way, this first tournament of the year. I believe he won it by 8 shots. Might have been 9 shots. He was everywhere, just drilling the ball. It was an unbelievable display. All right, coming up next here, we're going to have an interview. And now for the rest of this season, we're going to try to do as many interviews as we can on this podcast. And in this interview, we're going to be talking to Mike Lozano of the Atlanta Fire Pee Wee Hockey Club. And they're making a trip to Quebec. Coming up next, Mike Lozano. Hey, Randy Cross here, and we're going to have a little interview here, and it's a subject that's maybe a little off the radar for me, but I know there's a lot of people in this community and a lot of people in communities all over the country that love youth hockey. And joining me right now is Mike Lozano. He's the head coach of the Atlanta Fire 2005 Pee Wee Quebec team. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, what exactly, Atlanta Fire is a Pee Wee hockey team that's had some very nice success. The whole program's had a lot of nice success. Mm-hmm. But specifically to this Quebec tournament, what does it mean getting to play in something like this?
Yeah, so it's probably the most prestigious tournament that a kid could play in his youth hockey career. Several former NHL, current NHL players have made their bones or steps towards their career through this tournament. So it is an invitation-only tournament. There are thousands of hockey teams around the world that would love to play in this tournament at 12 and under, and there's only about 150 teams they select out of about thousands. So being able to go to another country that English is their second language, being able to stay with host families, the whole community in Quebec City gets involved with this tournament. So they have thousands of volunteers, families that open their homes for kids. They spend 10 days with a French-speaking family and learn the culture of French Canada, and at the same time playing against teams from Sweden, Germany, Australia, obviously Canada, Russia, all over the world, and being able to learn and understand different cultures from around the world while competing.
Yeah, so the analogy would be for most regular sports fans, this is Williamsport, Pennsylvania. This is the Little League World Series of youth hockey.
Absolutely, for sure.
And how do you go about actually, A, getting there, B, what's the ticket? I mean, it's got to be an expensive thing to bring a whole hockey team up to Quebec, and the tournament was about a week long.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the tournament could last 2 games, and you're eliminated out of the tournament.
Yeah.
But we've been fortunate enough to have an invitation to this tournament for the past 16 years. It started back in 2001, and with some of the founding guys here at the Cooler or here at the Atlanta Fire, and every year we go up as ambassadors to the Southern United States hockey people, and retain those relationships with the people that run that event, and that allows us to have that bid every year. I mean, it's not a guarantee, nothing is ever, but we've been fortunate enough to have a team that has been participating in that tournament for the last 16 years. So getting the ticket to go is really about the cross-pollination of American and Canadian families, and committing to spending time, not just treating it like another tournament, actually engulfing ourselves with French-speaking families and putting the kids there. So a lot of teams don't do that. A lot of teams stay in a hotel the whole time. And that gets twice as expensive as it would if you were hosting your kids with a French family. We obviously do a lot of fundraising with regard to building that trip. So that trip is a separate event for the rest of our season.
Right.
With regard to our budgets.
Well, in relation to fundraising in general and the tournament in general, where do people go to find out more about A, the Atlanta Fire, and B, the Quebec trip specifically?
Yeah, so on our Atlanta Fire hockey website, AtlantaFireHockey.com, we have information about our particular team. We also have a Facebook page, Atlanta Fire Pee Wee Quebec team, that you can follow, and there is where we put most of our information with regard to silent auctions that we had. We had a golf tournament earlier in the season that helped raise some money. We've got a bunch of local professional athletes that have donated, swag for us to be able to promote and help raise money, because it costs, the budget that we set aside for this trip is about $30,000 to $40,000 for that 10 days. So it's not a weekend event. So that's why we're doing as much as we can. Our Atlanta Fire Quebec team specifically is a nonprofit group, so that way we're able to help with tax deductions for those donators.
Now, part of the stuff you silent auction is sports related. I know you've got a Glavin, Maddox, and Smoltz autograph Hall of Fame baseball,
yes,
and
sir.
some other stuff. You got some hockey related stuff also, right?
Correct. Yeah, we've been fortunate enough to have some relationship with the Nashville Predators, and their existing team signed a jersey for us to be able to auction off. Tom Barrasso signed a stick, Hall of Fame goaltender with the Penguins, won 2 Stanley Cups with them, and we've also have obviously some Major League Baseball players that have donated some things. So we're really fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to go to this tournament, but at the same time teach these kids about what it takes to commit to something like that.
Yeah.
In their young life experiences.
Well, again, how do I find the silent auction? How do I find more information?
No, I appreciate that. So AtlantaFireHockey.com is where we're going to have information that we're going to broadcast, as well as the on Facebook page, Atlanta Fire Pee Wee Quebec. That's where you're going to find the information on the silent auction that will be up and running in the next couple days, and it'll last for a couple of weeks.
One of the things I found interesting is the title, Atlanta Fire 2005 Pee Wee Quebec Team. But being 11 and 12-year-olds, the 2005 references, that's the year they have to be born in.
Correct.
The oldest they can be to play in this tournament, right?
Correct. So everybody in this tournament internationally and in North America is born in that birth year in 2005 or less. So all the boys on my team are 12 years old, and this is their last year Pee Wee before they get into big boys hockey when it becomes full contact and everything else like that. So this is kind of when you're going through your minor hockey career, this would be the pinnacle of your experience up to this point, because there has been no opportunity to do any kind of national championship tournaments at our age. So once we get older, then they'll go ahead and start being able to do other things like that. But they really won't. International play under 16 is almost impossible unless you really want to spend some money.
Yeah. And you know, at your level, you mentioned the whole full contact coming in the junior phase of life for hockey players. I would assume most of that's done because of concussions, because of that contact not being very good for the young body. Is that something that you're actually trained in as a coach?
Yeah, so we go through a protocol to become a coach within USA Hockey around concussion protocol, around safe sport, and creating a safe environment for these young soon-to-be men or young boys to be able to play in. There was a time, I'd say maybe 6 years ago, when there was full contact at the 12 and under age, and there was tons of injuries because the kids are going through a different life cycle at that point. Some are maturing faster than others. So if you have an 11-year-old kid who just turned 11 years old playing against a kid that's getting ready to turn 13, and you're playing full contact, kids were getting a lot of concussions. Kids were getting a lot of cervical injuries, cervical neck injuries, because of the way that they just can't. They're just not mature enough to understand.
The disparity of development until you get to about that 16-year-old is ridiculous, and you see that in Pee Wee football.
Yes,
all-star games and stuff where you just get this monstrous kid that's basically an adult.
Yes, that's right. And so when you have that at that age, it doesn't make a fair playing field. So we wait. The organization, our governing body, USA Hockey, moved that age to 13 and 14 and higher to be full contact.
Okay.
So that way kids are a little bit more developed physically.
So again, it's AtlantaFireQuebec.com
So it's Atlanta Fire Quebec team as far as on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Yes. Atlanta Fire Pee Wee Quebec.
Or AtlantaFireHockey.com.
Yes, correct. That's correct.
That's fantastic. Mike, really appreciate you joining us.
Scott.
Best of luck to you guys.
Thank you.
And what do you say you win it?
Well, the last time I coached there was about 12 years ago, maybe. I took a team to the semifinal, one game away to the final.
Yeah.
I feel my team this year is stronger than that team I took in 2006. So from my perspective, I'm pretty optimistic we're going to make it to the further rounds.
Well, fantastic. Thanks for joining us, and we'll have you back on with the trophy.
I appreciate that, Scott.
All right.
Thank you. I look
Thanks,
forward
Mike.
to that.
Appreciate it. All right. Hey, time now for a wambulance. Oh, I love that. And when it comes to sports, the Butthurt Awards and the Wambulance Awards, no one deserves recognition more than the just prototypical Little League parent. You know that person, the one that sits in the stands and screams at their kid and criticizes the other kids and criticizes the coach of his team and the other team. You know that guy. Doesn't matter the sport. Could be baseball, could be hockey, could be football, anything. There's always that Little League parent. And you always think the higher you go, the less you have to worry about that. Because pros are pros, right? Well, have you met Levar Ball? Levar Ball, he of the Big Baller brand basketball shoe company that got about as low a rating as possible from the Better Business Bureau this last week, decided that he was going to come out and say that Luke Walton, the head coach of his son's team, the LA Lakers, had lost his basketball team. Here it is right here. You can see they're not playing for Luke no more. Luke doesn't have control of the team no more. They don't want to play for him. What was Luke's answer in the press conference right after that? Yeah, Levar might have had that look on his face when they finally ran this audio.
Yeah, his dad was talking shit, so I took him out early.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Somebody crush this loser. Done nothing, do nothing. Little league parent. That's all this guy is. And you're supposed to take him seriously? Please. Please. Definition of a butt-hurt wambulance winner, Levar Ball. All right, let's go next to Tinfoil Hat, or They Live Among Us. Now, you'll love this. This is our Tinfoil Hat story for the week. We came across this one, and I had to start 2018 in season 2 with this one because there's a group out there that claims there are 250 million aliens, citizens, and I'm not talking about illegal citizens. I'm talking aliens, as in another planet, living on the moon, according to a former CIA pilot. Check this out.
The former CIA pilot, John Lear, has been quite famous among the conspiracy theorists. Everything you heard about the moon is a lie. He said he has discovered secret structures on the moon and furthermore, showed some images that allegedly show proof of these artificial formations. Lear described the moon's citizens as humanoid aliens. He also said that among them there is also the race of the Greys, but they live under the moon's surface, working in enormous laboratories. To sound even weirder, he said that the Earth is actually a planet prison that serves as a place for punishments. John Lear has some unbelievable ideas and claims, so it's
like a
not
prison at
strange he
times.
is being a subject of constant jokes among the rationalists.
Constant jokes among the rationalists. You mean the people out there with a grip on reality that don't think there's 250 million aliens on the moon? Yeah, those rationalists. Wow. You literally could not make stuff like this up. That leads us right into the real world news of the week. One big story. Fiction was big this week as we bring in the real world news. Fiction of all kinds. Fiction in books, Michael Wolff. Fictions in life, movies and whatnot. Or just fictions as far as, how about the awards, like the Golden Globe Awards? Really? It was just another chance. If you didn't tune in, what you missed was you're scum. They're much better than you. They dress much better than you. They're richer than you. They are just a breed apart. They are the creme de la creme of our society, and we're just lucky to be able to be around them. But you know what? She knew. Yeah. She knew. The highlight of the night was her speech, but she knew. Mark Wahlberg's one of the only people in Hollywood that makes any sense, that has any kind of a clue or a pulse on what's going out in the real country. That's not LA, Chicago, San Francisco, or New York. Gotta admire the guy's onions for being able to point that out. Because just to sort of review, here's Harvey Weinstein. And this is the group of women that were associated by sexual harassment / assault against Harvey. And they had this, we're all going to wear black to this event to call attention to sexual harassment. Yeah, I got news for you. All these losers right here, they got one thing in common. They're all connected to Hollywood. They're all liberals. And they're all going to be proven guilty, either in the court of public opinion or in court, period. Do they have to clean up their act? Hollywood, absolutely. But she knew, and she knew, no one said anything. What are we supposed to think? She definitely knew. We already reviewed that, but she knew. And the normal out here, the guys that are like Mark Wahlberg, well, you know, you got these two right here. They have what you would call a revisionist memory. Oh, no, we had no idea. No, we didn't know anything. They both knew. They knew what was going on. Don't fool yourself. The worst kept secret in Hollywood and New York. It's not even a secret. The best kept secret in Hollywood and New York are the pedophiles. The people that are preying on young girls and young boys. And I'm not kidding. This is something that hasn't been brought up. But the Polanskis and the Allens are not the exception, it seems. At times, it seems they're the rule in the entertainment agency. And is this the creepiest photo you've ever seen? The Oprah, the Harvey, and what looks in the middle to be a bargaining chip or a future victim. That is a creepy, creepy photo. Fiction? I don't think it is. Not in this case. They've got a serious issue in the real world news. All right, let's move on. Right now, we're going to go to our feel-good story of the day. Oh, yeah, the watermelon-eating hamster. We didn't change any of that because I'm not sure you get any better than a watermelon-eating hamster for a feel-good story. There's a 20-year-old out there who also shall remain nameless, but we'll show his picture at the very end here, who came up with a list of stories. He said that the 2017 had been so terrible, he just had to come up with 2017's feel-good stories of the year. And I got to agree with him. He hit a home run on a lot of these stories. Check these out. And that was the whole impetus behind doing it. Bored. 2017 was full of negativity. Now, if you like the environment, you like the ocean, how great is that news? They can regrow the Great Barrier Reef. Jeff Bezos recently estimated at $105 billion empire, can house 200 homeless people at his center. How about the snow leopard? Are those magnificent animals? They're not on the endangered list anymore. HIV and AIDS is no longer the leading cause of death on the African continent. We've got honeybees and bees. They're increasing, not decreasing. That's great news. Shoe company in Argentina, shoes from recycled tires and giving them to the poor. Conservationists, 75 million trees they're going to plant. That's a good story right there. 27%. That's pretty strong. Child labor rates have declined by half since 2000. That's a lot of improvements in the third world countries. There's a great feel-good story. The heck with that. Let's donate cans. And this is my favorite feel-good story of the year. At the end of the first quarter, all the fans at the Iowa home football games turn around and wave to the cancer patients in the hospital right next door to the stadium. Kudos to this young man for putting together that list, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. Want to remind you where to find it. It's at unsafespacesUSA.com. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on SoundCloud, on iTunes, on Facebook, on Twitter. unsafespacesUSA.com. For any notes, any suggestions, it's producer at unsafespacesUSA.com. And we just got done with New Year's. 2018 is only, just a freckle over a week old. Let's go with another Happy New Year's version of Happy Trails.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Who cares about the clouds if we're together? sunny way.